We're approaching the end of November, but there's been some big waves in the board game world, so we're here to tell you all about it in our pre-Thanksgiving special news roundup.
The upcoming standalone Gloomhaven spin-off game now has an official title, Jaws of the Lion. This is slated for Q3 2020 release. It is a smaller version of the giant board game Gloomhaven that can be played by new players or added on to the original game as an expansion. It's going to include a smaller campaign with just a few characters, and although we knew a lot of the information about it before this announcement, we got a couple more details, including the newest class and character that will be in the game, known as the Void Walker, a being that has been affected by the Void and can use the Void and its magic to their advantage. Now, we talked about this on the show not too long ago, but at that time, some of this information wasn't really available yet. So some of this is old. We haven't had the chance to talk about it. The fact that it's going to be in the $40 to $50 price range. The entire game takes place in a book. So the maps are printed on the pages of the book rather than using individual cardboard pieces. And so that eases setup time. And as well, he had talked about Isaac Childress, the designer, on the website, that he's trying to get some kind of deals in place with certain distributors. So this may be available in certain places, like I think he mentioned, that sort of like Barnes & Noble style places before other gaming stores. He's trying to reach a more mass market audience that would be more amenable to this game than like the really hardcore type.
And I mean, I think that's a great idea because, I mean, this is a darling for a lot of people, some of their favorites. And to have this more, I guess, newer, friendlier version for maybe a casual market, maybe not as, maybe a bit more shocked to see this giant game hit the table.
Right.
And that would be the perfect thing to have in something like the Targets, the Walmarts, the Barnes and Nobles. Because if you see that and you've heard, oh, Gloomhaven's good, and that has the name on it, but it's not like a bad spin-off. It's like, it still has the mechanics that people love are still in there. It's not some weird version of it.
Yeah, because I'm sure that there was a lot of people hear the name Gloomhaven because it's got so much buzz, and they're new to board games and they think, oh, that's the game to get, and then they look at it and they're like, oh, it's $150. What in the world is this? And they get scared. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And I mean, personally, even for me, as someone who can handle those bigger games, I love that it all takes place in a book. It reminds me of the adventure book games from Plaid Hat.
Right.
Because like you said, that is just so much simpler. It's easier, and it's a shorter campaign, and there's less pressure on it, but then you can move on to the big game if you like it.
Well, it can be combined with the big game too, if I recall. So it's not just this is only for the newer people. If you are a veteran, you can take that and add the components to your game.
Yeah, so we'll see exactly how it compares to the original one. Jaws of the Lion, again, comes out sometime Q3 2020.
AEG has announced it will be partnering up with the Op Games in order not only to help distribute Smash Up more, but also bring some of their licensed products to Smash Up. This is the deck building game, which pretty much you can choose a bunch of different factions, especially with all the expansions at this point, smash them up into one deck and play against each other. This new partnership is very interesting because it means they're going to be bringing a lot of licensed products. Now, we don't know what licenses they're bringing, but they have announced, unrelatedly, they're going to have March Smashness in 2020, which will also have a online tournament with some of their already announced factions to see who's the best, but also announce some other big Smash Up news. Would be shocked if we did not hear more of this partnership and maybe some of the groups that will be coming to Smash Up there. This is very interesting because one of the Smash Up groups, one of the ones I really enjoy, the expansions, is actually a joke on licensed products. It's the sort of copyright strike ones where they don't have Transformers but not Transformers, Game of Thrones, Star Trek, and Star Wars. Right. So maybe we'll actually get Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Star Trek, and Transformers.
I mean, if you look at the list of licenses that the Op has used in their other games, it does include Game of Thrones, Marvel, Harry Potter, Disney. Theoretically, it could be crazy. I mean, is that something you would be excited about? Would you want to be like, yeah, let me play Smash Up with Gryffindors versus Ghosts versus, Star Wars, whatever it is?
I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed the licensing one, partly because it's almost joking on all of them because they can't use the exact things. But now that you said that, at first I was like, oh, the Harry Potter set, okay, but now I'm like a small box because there's 4 usually, and Gryffindor, Slytherin. I'm like, okay, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah. To actually be able to have the houses.
Also for me, a sticking point would also be Are they going to, because I like the smash up artwork. Are they going to keep that style, or is it going to be photos from the movies?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd want to keep the smash up artwork, partially because if you look as expansions go, they actually reference the other expansions. So you'll see them someone beating up a dragon later on or a monster.
Right.
So it'd be really funny if, like the Harry Potter ones, if they actually reference like the wizards or something. Or if they did the official Star Wars or Star Trek, they mock the joke ones.
Yeah. There's a lot of places that they could go.
I mean, let us know what sets you would like to see in there from the op, or I guess any at this point, because I'm sure if the op doesn't have it, maybe they could use this as a, do you want to be in Smash Up, go through us kind of thing. But hopefully this will be good, and by the sound of it, we'll learn a lot more in March 2020.
AEG also announced an original title they have in the works for April of 2020. It's called Inner Compass. It's a competitive game in which players are trying to reach enlightenment and find their inner compass. Each player has their own individual player board, and you're going to be moving your piece around on a shared board in the center of the field to different colored spaces, and depending on where you move and where you are, you'll be able to take or spend emotion cards, which you'll have in your hand, representing happiness, sadness, all kinds of emotions that you're familiar with from real life, probably. And by playing those, you'll be able to clear different pieces from your own board. And once you've cleared all of them, if you're the first person to do so, you will receive your inner compass. And there are other ways to get points throughout the game. There's some side sort of achievement style cards. You're going to try to be hitting different colors, different points in different ways to get the most emotion points at the end of the game. This is a cute little idea with some really nice looking artwork, and it makes me think of, in terms of its theme, I feel like games like Fog of Love. Another game that comes to mind is And Then We Held Hands, as sort of a framework for more games that have themes that aren't just so one-to-one about, you know, fight the dude, take over the map, that have these more abstract, everyday kind of themes that I think are nice.
I really do hope actually it follows, of the two you mentioned, not that I think the other one is bad, but the Fog of Love style. I would love it if they actually have a lot more events or something in there they have to deal with, which are complicated. You know, like with Fog of Love being, it's obviously much more romantic related, when this could be a bit more broader with some of the things, like dealing with like work issues, you know, friends, or even like a pet dying kind of deal. Like,
yeah. Compared to Fog of Love, I think this is going to be much less thematic.
I
Sounds
think
a lot
so.
more
I can
abstract.
only hope, but I'm still interested in trying it out. Like you said, just because when I hear about something, it's something at least different, as you said. So I'm like, all right, I'll bite. Let's see what this is like.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that they're going for something new.
And we reported a while back how AEG wanted to sort of slim down and really make sure the things that released are stronger. So that this made the cut has also intrigued me.
Yeah, so Inner Compass, check it out. The full rule book has been posted on their website. Otherwise, you can wait until April to try to play it yourself.
Stonemaier Games is a very popular gaming company with a lot of great hits, but for the last 6 years has technically only had one full-time employee, that being Jamie Stegmaier. But finally, he's decided that the workload might have been too much and has finally hired a new person. Joe Aubrey, which now has the title of Director of Communications, has been hired on full-time to, from what I can tell, deal with sort of the public image and Director of Communications, dealing with like Twitter and Facebook. Though he has been stated that if it has Jamie's face or name attached, that will be him. He's still going to have his own blog. If he posts it, you know it's from him. This is pretty incredible that he's been running all of this on his own. I mean, and obviously it makes sense that someone to take up the communications aspect. I mean, we have so much fun with Instagram and Twitter on our end.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all. I'm like, yeah, if there's one thing you hire someone for, it's that. That is the headache. This also just drives home to me how hard it must be to have a game company that, you know, Stonemaier Games is arguably one of the bigger names, at least on the indie side of board games right now. And the fact that it's just one guy, like I assume it's not because he doesn't want more help, but because the company's just not big enough to support like a full-time group of people. You know what I mean?
Tell it's sort of A/B, like he's just like, I want to just keep managing everything and do this. But the problem is, like he even says in that, like, he tracked just how much time went into game development and just sort of just plunged.
Yeah.
You know, and
you gotta wear all the hats.
So the fact he can sort of spread out means we can see even better games, which is a great sign, or at the very least, even think more about, like, because one of the best games from him recently isn't actually from him. So maybe he can spend
Right.
more like trying to look for those games that are worthy of the Stonemaier tag.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we have some less uplifting news items that we have to cover. J.R. Honeycutt is a game designer who has worked on a number of games over the past few years with Pandasaurus and Restoration games. You've probably played at least one or two of the titles that he's got under his belt. He has been accused by Victoria Mann of abuse, both sexual and emotional. She has come out on Medium.com and wrote an entire article detailing what they went through. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. And he later came out and made a post on Facebook, which I believe has since been deleted, but essentially admitted to the things that were there, said, yes, I did these things, tried to apologize for it, etc. And right away, pretty quickly, the companies that he's worked with came out on Twitter or in other places saying that they are no longer working with him. Board Game Geek said that they've revoked his pass for Board Game Geek Con. A lot of these companies have stepped forward and cut ties with him. And, it's the kind of thing, we've had a couple of little instances like this pop up in the past couple years in the board game world, but obviously in the world at large, it's a much bigger issue that you hear about, especially in like Hollywood, the media, places like that, situations like this occurring. And it's super unfortunate. And, for people who are in the know and in the industry, maybe know this guy, maybe he's different. But for someone like me that, I just really enjoy a lot of the games that he's worked on. It includes Machikoro Legacy, Betrayal Legacy, almost all the Restoration games titles that have come out to this point, he's had a hand in somewhat. And it's just really stings to hear this kind of thing, that this comes out and that's what it is. But I recommend people read that initial article and get the full story from there, because we're not going to really go into all of it right now. And
of course, read the announcements from the companies. Like for example, if you feel awkward because of playing those, like Restoration Games said that they're not paying him any royalties or doesn't get anything from buying the game. So if you feel guilty about supporting someone like that, you don't have to. But of course, hear it from them first so you can decide your choices from that.
Yeah, I think Pandasaurus specifically said they're going to be giving some stuff to charity. I think maybe Rob Davio said that as well, from some of their the proceeds, the profits of their games. So the companies have all, the silver lining of this is people have come forward and it feels like really turned around and had good responses to this, done the right thing. And hopefully J.R. Honeycutt, we don't know him and never met him, but hopefully like he gets help if he needs it. And people, we can learn from this and people in the future can stop doing this. But it's hard. We're not solving it right now on this show, but I think it's good to talk about it and have it out there. So if something like this has affected you, we encourage you to do that as well in any way whatsoever, whatever your outlet is.
We must also announce that Chad Jensen, creator of Combat Commander Europe and a personal favorite of ours, Dominant Species, has passed away. He was diagnosed with late-stage cancer back in May this year and unfortunately was unable to beat it. This is a great loss, in particular because Dominant Species was also going to finally get the new C version of it, which we were greatly looking forward to. I mean, like we said, Dominant Species was one of our first games, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I remember when we were first getting into games, that's always one of the big ones on the list of anywhere. If I was asking for recommendations, like when we were trying to build our early collections, people would always say, oh, do you have Dominant Species yet? Because that's like, it covers, if you don't have a worker placement yet, get that. If you don't have an area control yet, get that,
It's also, it is a long game, but of some of the very early games we played, it's the one I wish we can go back to the most out of a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot. We're not big war gamers, so we can't really speak to, at least I can't, to Commander Combat Europe or most of his other designs, but he didn't really have that many, and I think it speaks to just how impactful Dominant Species was, that from one game, I feel like he was almost a household name, but he didn't work on too many other projects. That game was just such a huge impact. And yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get to see more stuff from him. But of course, Marine, I'm pretty sure is still slated for release. So hopefully at least we'll get that from what he had worked on it up until that point. We'll get the chance to see it and play it. But yeah, our thoughts definitely go out to the family and anyone else affected by it. Sad.
And of course, if you haven't heard of it, definitely check out Dominant Species now. We highly suggest it, not just because of his passing, but we think it is a game that will and has stood the test of time.
That does it for this edition of the Roll for Crit News Roundup. It's been a while since we did one of these. We're a little bit rusty, but there were a bunch of random news items that we thought didn't quite fit anywhere else. We mashed them together here. Some of them obviously very important, some of them super upsetting for some people. So it was a mix of good and bad. I hate to leave people on a down note, but that's the way it is sometimes. But I'm sure that everyone watching has thoughts about some of these things. Are you excited for the new announcements? You want to leave some thoughts, memories about playing Dominant Species? That would be really cool. Anything like that in the comments section down below. We'd like to hear it. That's always fun for us.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's it. Otherwise, yeah, we have fun.
Until you all enjoy your Thanksgiving dinners, if you're in America or elsewhere, just have a good meal. I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
This has been Roll for Crit.
If you love board game content, do us a favor, like and subscribe, and support us on Patreon.
Keep watching our content to guarantee you'll top deck a good video.